Hello everyone, Dr. Nessler here with another installment of my Putting Things into Perspective series for self-improvement. Today we're going to take a look at making better decisions. We're going to look at 10 ways that you can create an atmosphere in your life where you will be consistently making better decisions. Now, I have them divided up into 10 different strategies, and they're numbered 1 to 10, but 1 is not necessarily more important than 10 and vice versa. They're all equally important. I've just numbered them so that we can keep track. So let's get started. Number 1, visualize a future successful self. Look into the future. Look at where you want to be in your life. If you are making a decision that seems to get you closer to that, then that probably is a good decision. But if your decision is getting you further away from that future successful self that you visualize, then you may want to reconsider. So always think about the future, but also have a picture of where you want to be, what that future successful self looks like, so that your decision is in line with that. A lot of times we'll make rash decisions because it seems like a good decision at the time, but we're really not thinking it through. We're really not looking at the big picture. Make sure you consider the big picture. Number 2, stay open to all possibilities. A lot of times we will limit our decisions to things that we immediately see. We'll make a rash decision. We'll make a quick decision. We don't really consider the other possibilities. I'll give you a prime example, buying a car. Think about the salesperson. The salesperson in the dealership, they want you to stay there. They want to do whatever it takes to get you to make a decision right there and then, because they know if you leave the dealership, you're going to have other things to consider, other possibilities. If they can limit your possibilities, they have a much stronger chance of getting you to purchase that vehicle. It's not always in your best interest, however. What you want to do is consider all possibilities. So make sure you're open to all the different possibilities. Take your time, don't rush. Number 3, limit your options. Now this seems to be in stark contrast to the previous one, but it's not. What we're saying here with limit your options is that once you've considered all the possibilities, eliminate those possibilities or those options that you really know that you don't want to choose. By doing so, you can eliminate some of the things that are clouding your judgment. If you can limit it down to the ones that you know are the best choices, then you can compare and contrast much easier. So limit your options so that you're only considering the true potential choices that you want to make, and you're not clouding it with other choices that may or may not be important. Number 4, and here's a really good strategy, put it down on paper. Many times if you put something down on paper, you take the effort to write it out, you'll see things entirely differently. Make a list, pros, cons, list everything in both, and a lot of times what you'll find is those things that you considered cons are not as many as you once thought. And once you can put it down on paper and you can limit those to exact things that you're really considering, it doesn't become such a giant monster in the room that's clouding your judgment, influencing your decision, etc. Number 5, think small. Think about the minimal decision that you have to make. Many times, one decision leads to another decision, leads to another set of problems, etc. And we get all that in our mind while we're trying to make a decision. Those are decisions that we make in the future. They're not decisions we're making right now. What we want to focus on is just what we need to decide on now. What's the best choice now? So think small. Think about the minimum decision that you have to make. What's the smallest decision you have to make at the moment? Number 6. Use both sides of your brain. Did you know that the left side of your brain controls your logical thinking, whereas the right side controls your creativity? Well, you need to use both. Quite often, we'll think that we need to just use our logical side of our brain in making decisions, and then we're not happy with the decisions. Because the creative side, that's the emotional side. That's the side that has to feel good about it. And if you don't feel good about the decision, was it really the right decision? That's what you need to consider. So use both sides of your brain. It's not wrong to let feelings impact your decision, because honestly, feelings is what decides whether you're happy with the decision or not. So you have to include logic, obviously, but you also have to include feelings, obviously, too. Number 7, Imagine the worst case scenario. What's the worst possible thing that could happen if you make this decision, or you choose this particular thing, etc., etc., etc.? If the worst possible scenario is a true possibility and you can't live with that, then you really need to consider that when making your decision, because the worst possible scenario for making that decision could occur. And if it could occur and you can't live with that, then you might want to let that influence your decision. But do that for all possible solutions. So if you have a series of choices and you consider the worst possible outcome for each of those choices, and one or more of them are outcomes that you could not possibly live with, then you might want to take the safer route. Now, if you say, all right, well, it's not ideal, but I could live with it, then it's still a possibility worth considering. Number 8, sleep on it. We are much better decision makers when we're well rested, and a good night's sleep will lead to better decision making in the morning, I pretty much guarantee. Your subconscious gets a chance to kick in. It allows your right side of your brain to influence your decision in your feelings part, and you'll feel much better about your decision. So sleep on it. Give yourself a chance to relax and meditate on the decision making and see if things are clearer in the morning. All right, number 9, go with your gut. When you get down to like the last 2 possible choices, or last 3 possible choices in an important decision, and one just feels better than the other, chances are your gut's telling you something. And what your gut is your subconscious. And your subconscious has a lot of data that it processes. So it's not always a bad idea to go with your gut. Now, I wouldn't go with your gut in important decisions without utilizing some of these other strategies first, but going with your gut's a good way to break the tie, so to speak. And number 10, ask yourself the right questions. Is this decision going to make me happy? Am I going to be okay with it? Am I going to second guess it? Because all those things are important, because if you make a decision and you're not committed to it, it's not necessarily going to be a good decision for you, even if it was the logical, correct choice. Also, 5 years from now, is this going to be a good decision for me? 3 years from now, 2 months from now, those types of things. Project that future and make sure that that decision is really what you want. All right, so those are the 10 strategies that I wanted to recommend. Did you notice that not one of them mentioned asking other people? And the reason for that is that many people will recommend ask other people, let them have input. And having input wouldn't necessarily be bad, but what we tend to do when we ask other people is kind of rely on them to make the decision for us. And they don't have the investment in our lives that we do. And they might give good advice, but at the same time, it's our decision to make. So if you'd like to ask other people for input, that's fine, but make sure it's just input and they're not making the decision for you. Okay, so I wouldn't list that as one of my 10 strategies. If it helps you, some people it's good for, some people it's not so good for. So I'll leave that one up to you. So in the end, we need to rely on ourselves. We need to look at the data, we need to analyze it, we need to set out the possible choices and then make the best one for ourselves. Use the strategies that I've shared. Sometimes all those strategies can come into play, sometimes just a few. But regardless, we use those strategies to make better decisions in our lives. And then once you're done, be committed to that decision and then move on to the next one. I hope you were able to take something of value from this video. If you have any comments or questions, please list them in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be notified when new content comes out. Once again, thank you for joining me today, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Take care.